Herzlich willkommen zu der Veranstaltung Kroatien hat gewählt, hier in der Hessischen Landesvertretung in Brüssel. Ich bin Verena Schmitt-Roschmann, ich bin EU-Korrespondentin für die Deutsche Presseagentur hier in Brüssel. Wir sind hier in einem kleinen Kreis mit der hessischen Landesministerin für Europafragen, Lucia Puttrich, und meinem kroatischen Journalistenkollegen Tomislav Krasnec, der uns gleich das Wahlergebnis erläutern wird. Das ist ja doch ganz interessant ausgefallen und das auch die europapolitischen Auswirkungen erläutern wird. Wir freuen uns, dass Sie online zuschauen. Sie können natürlich Fragen stellen. Die Hinweise dazu werden gleich eingeblendet. Und Sie können das auch, nachdem wir zwischen Englisch und Deutsch hin und her wechseln, auch in Übersetzung anschauen. Die Hinweise dazu finden Sie unterhalb Ihres Bildschirms, also unterhalb des Livestreams. Jetzt möchte ich aber erstmal die hessische Landesministerin bitten, ein paar Grußworte zu sprechen.
Sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, ich darf Sie ganz herzlich begrüßen aus der hessischen Landesvertretung in Brüssel. Ich bin gerade hier und nach dem Lockdown auch erstmals wieder hier in Brüssel. Das freut mich besonders. Diese Veranstaltung nach Wahlen mit großem Publikum hier in der Landesvertretung durch. Die letzte Veranstaltung, die wir nach einer Wahl durchgeführt haben, hier in der Landesvertretung, war die Wahl in der Slowakei. Dieses Mal führen wir die Veranstaltung noch digital durch. Kroatien nach der Wahl. Eine Wahl, die vorgezogen wurde, die in der Krise stattgefunden hatte und mit Sicherheit auch durch die Krise entsprechend beeinflusst war. Ich bin gespannt auf das, was wir jetzt hören werden. Was bedeutet dieser Zeitpunkt dieser Wahl? Was hat die Wahl besonders beeinflusst? Mit Sicherheit die Krise an sich. Eine Krise, die zu bewältigen war, in Kroatien, in der Europäischen Union, in unterschiedlichen Mitgliedstaaten, auch in unterschiedlichen Betroffenheiten. Wie sah es in den einzelnen Ländern aus bezüglich des Gesundheitssystems? Wie konnte die Krise bewältigt werden? Wie sieht es mit den finanziellen Folgen aus? Aber es gibt natürlich auch weitere Fragen, die in einem Land zu beantworten sind, außerhalb der Krise. Mit Sicherheit ist für Kroatien zum Beispiel die Frage der Migration nach wie vor eine Frage, die dieses Land betrifft, aber nicht nur dieses Land, sondern uns auch alle miteinander in der Europäischen Union. Nämlich eins ist auch klar, wir haben die Folgen der Corona-Krise zu bewältigen, gemeinsam, aber wir haben auch viele Fragen außerhalb der Krise, die uns nach wie vor beschäftigen. Und das in Zeiten der deutschen Ratspräsidentschaft. Ich freue mich auf eine spannende Veranstaltung gemeinsam mit Ihnen, hoffe genauso wie Sie, dass wir Sie bald wieder persönlich hier in unserer Landesvertretung begrüßen können. Aber digital ist ja nun auch mal ein Weg und vor allen Dingen ein Weg, um interessante Informationen an Sie weiterzugeben, um einer interessanten Diskussion zu folgen. Herzlich willkommen, viel Spaß Ihnen und ich freue mich auf Sie.
Herzlichen Dank, Frau Ministerin. Ich möchte jetzt unseren Kroatien-Experten vorstellen. Tomislav Krasnec ist ein sehr erfahrener Journalistenkollege, der schon seit 2011 hier in Brüssel arbeitet. Für die Zeitung Večernji List. Vorher war er in den USA und hat auch lange investigativ gearbeitet. Und heute wird er uns das Wahlergebnis erläutern, das ja, wie gesagt, etwas anders ausgefallen ist, als die Umfragen das vorhergesagt hatten und auch sicher europapolitische Implikationen hat. Tomislav wird das auf Englisch darlegen. Deshalb nochmal der Hinweis, dass Sie auch die Übersetzung anhören können. Wie gesagt, das ist unterhalb Ihres Bildschirms, können Sie da eine Auswahlfunktion treffen. Und ich würde dann später auch auf Englisch noch ein paar Fragen an Tomislav stellen. Also zunächst mal das Wort an ihn. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you and welcome to everybody and thanks for tuning in and organizing this event. So Croatia has been to the polls. 2 days ago, on 5th of July, it elected a new parliament, and it was elections in very extraordinary circumstances, as everyone is aware, in the times of corona crisis. And everyone was wondering how this will look like and how the voters will behave in these times of huge crisis, and how elections could be organized with social distancing measures and everyone being careful about being too close or too exposed to the virus. But the election happened. It went pretty smoothly, and we'll take a look in the results. So HDZ, HDZ, Christian Democrat Party, which is a part of European People's Party, center-right family, won the elections, and it was a surprise to many analysts. It was surprising, I think, maybe even to HDZ people, how many seats in the parliament they won, because the opinion polls ahead of the elections didn't give them that much a lead as they experienced on a voting day. So in total, they won around 37% of the total vote in Croatia. Croatia is divided in 10 constituencies, but this is a percentage when you add everything up. So these percentages that you see on the screen, we collected them yesterday when the counting was at the figure of 98%. They might have changed, but less than 1%, very slightly, insignificantly. So the second biggest list in the parliament is a pre-election coalition formed by Social Democrats, SDP or SDP, who formed a coalition named Restart. They went for this catchy phrase to signal not only restart in the government in Croatia, but also playing or signaling to people that they want to restart the whole economy, the whole society in these times of crisis. So members of these coalitions were various smaller parties, and in the opinion polls ahead of the election, they came close to HDZ, but at the election they were proven to be pretty unsuccessful, and the leader of SDP, of Social Democrats in Croatia, resigned yesterday because of the election loss. So their percentage of votes is around 25%. In the parliament, we also have smaller parties to the right of HDZ and smaller parties, one small party to the left of SDP, which proved also to be a surprise at this election, which is Možemo. You see them with 7% of the vote. So it's a startup party, also a coalition of left-wing and green smaller parties. Mainly they're represented in the capital, in the city of Zagreb, and they've built from there the momentum. But they're also a surprise of these elections. But further to the right of the HDZ, we see Most. They've been around for since 2015. And in previous parliaments, election circles, they've been kingmakers who HDZ couldn't form the government without them, but they fell off from the government, and they went to these elections with the platform very much opposing HDZ and being more socially conservative. They won around 7% of the vote. And there is also a homeland movement by Miroslav Škoro, that's the name of the leader of this movement. They are also a new party, startup, more right-wing, more to the right than HDZ, and they tried to profit on opposing the mainstream politics of HDZ. Being more to the right, maybe even trying to introduce in Croatia a kind of politics that we see in Poland or in Hungary, with leaders who are very socially conservative. This homeland movement by Miroslav Škoro also talked during the campaign about the abortion rights, which they wanted to to ban or not to allow any abortions in Croatia, which are of course legally allowed right now. So they've been trying to win voters on this more to the right politics and platform. They joined the parliament as a third force with around 11% of the vote. But we will see, and there is also smaller parties like Pametno, which in Croatian means smart. They entered the parliament. They won around 4% on a national level when you add everything up. And HNS, Liberal Party, that was part of the government, which aided HDZ previously, probably will join HDZ in the new government as well. We'll take a look at the number of the seats in the new Croatian parliament. We have to say that turnout was lower than 50%, so it was 47%, lowest ever in Croatia. Probably because of the coronavirus, people are careful. They didn't know what they're going to face at the election booth, and a lot of them stayed at home. But generally in Croatia, we see a decline of turnout of voters for many years, for 20 years now. So we see a tendency of voters feeling they don't have anyone to vote for and staying at home on the election day. But when we look at the number of the seats, there are 151 seats in the Croatian parliament, and you need 76 to form a government. Already day after the election, leader of the HDZ, Prime Minister Andrej Plenković, pronounced that he already has 76 MPs who are supporting him, so he'll have a mandate to form a government, he feels, very soon and very comfortably. HDZ by itself won 66 seats in the parliament, and they've reached, our Prime Minister says they've reached this number 76 by gaining the support of, you see on the other end of the spectrum, national minorities. These are 8 reserved seats for national minorities in Croatia, 3 of them Serb national minority, but also Italian, Austrian, Hungarian, different national minorities. And with their support, HDZ is closing to 76, and with the support of HNS, Liberal Party, which have 1 MP, and Reformists, they call themselves Reformisti, which also have 1 MP, and this is indeed 76. So it was pretty clear on the election evening and day after that this period of forming a government won't be long, and there'll be a clear picture. Of course, talks are still ongoing, and it will take some time to formally do it. But it seems like Croatia already has Prime Minister Plenković already has a clear path to the majority in the parliament. Restart coalition with as Social Democrats as the biggest member of that coalition won 41 seats. Homeland Movement by Miroslav Škoro won 16, most 8. So these are 2 parties that will challenge ruling majority from the right. And Možemo won 7 seats. This is party to the left of Restart Coalition and Social Democrats, new startup party. They will challenge. They will bring a new dynamics to the parliament, definitely. Not only because they are startup, but because also they have some MPs that are further to the left than Croatia had experience in the parliamentary democracy. And we have 3 MPs from Pametno, small party and small coalition. Also center-left. We'll see whether some of them will join this majority by HDZ, but HDZ is looking to forming a new government. President of Croatia, Zoran Milanović, came from Social Democrats and won the election, presidential election in December and January, and he won against the HDZ candidate, and Social Democrats maybe saw in that also encouragement that they can have a momentum and win the parliamentary election. He was the one who is formally calling the date for the election, for the parliamentary election. But of course, Parliament decides when decides approximately from which dates the presidents can choose. And at the end of May, when Croatia saw figures of newly COVID cases down to 0, it seems like the epidemic has passed, and that summer months are indeed the best time to have the election. And the president of Croatia called the election for 5th of July. He had the opportunity to choose from 21st of June until 12th of July, so he had a couple of Sundays to choose from, but he opted for 5th of July. And then this guy isn't really a politician, but he's part of the story, and he influenced a little bit the political campaign. Novak Djoković, #1 tennis player in the world, very known Serbian tennis player, organized a tennis tournament in Croatia, in Zadar on the coast, Adria Tour. And it was a big thing. Prime Minister Plenković showed up briefly on Saturday, 20th of June, and came close to Djoković. They didn't shake hands. They were kind of respecting social distancing, but not respecting it totally. There was a picture taken of 2 of them. Seemed like everyone was enjoying life, getting back to normal, and big sports tournaments being organized in Croatia at the beginning of the tourist season. But then players from this tennis tournament started being tested positive on coronavirus. And Novak Djoković as well tested positive for COVID-19. And Prime Minister Plenković came under a lot of pressure to go to self-isolation because he was in close contact, or what people perceived as a close contact, with positive COVID-19 cases. So this perspective of how is coronavirus and COVID-19 affecting the political campaign was really showed in this example. And Plenković's opponents from Social Democrats, Davor Bernardic, was putting a lot of pressure. Everyone from that side was telling Prime Minister Plenković, no, you shouldn't be campaigning, you should go and self-isolate, like many, many other Croatian citizens who came in close contact with positive COVID-19 cases had to go to self-isolation for 14 days. Going to the self-isolation for 14 days would put Plenković out of the game, let's say, or only virtually present until the election day. Plenković went, of course, immediately to test himself. He was tested negative, but still people were saying tests don't always tell the truth from the first attempt. So maybe he is positive. That's what people were trying to say. But he, at the end, tested 4 times. Each and every time he tested negative, and campaign continued. But in the air, somewhere this was a big element in the campaign, and it affected some of the political election events who had to be cancelled or lowered in terms of numbers of people attending. And then we have Davor Bernardic, who is the leader, was the leader of opposition until yesterday, leader of Social Democrats. He was fighting a campaign in which opinion polls at one point put him neck to neck to HDZ, and at the other point some opinion polls even in the lead, a small lead. So he and his coalition, Restart Coalition, felt they had a momentum. Maybe what turned voters away from him was the fact that he's quite young, 40 years old, and his whole professional career has been in the politics. He never held official title in any executive nor government, nor so maybe experience was judged to be a minus for him, but during the campaign he appeared very self-confident until the very end. Homeland Movement by Miroslav Škoro, the leader here, Mr. Škoro, we see him in the picture. He was also a candidate at the presidential election, and he didn't enter the second round back then, but he felt he has a momentum, and he prepared organized a new party or movement for the parliamentary election. Had candidates in every constituency, of course. Had great expectations, and I think many analysts and commentators in the media agree that his goal was to force HDZ to move further to the right, either by Homeland Movement ending up in the new parliament as a kingmaker, who will decide whether HDZ can form a government or not, or by defeating the Prime Minister Plenković altogether, even if a Restart Coalition came to power, and then HDZ would have to go through the internal party elections where these people from the Homeland Movement hoped they would maybe come ahead and lead the HDZ altogether and move it further to the right. We have to say, and you have to keep in mind that Prime Minister Plenković, as a former MEP and a diplomat, has put HDZ more to the center right. So from the far right, more to the center, to the mainstream, let's say, EPP politics and values. And some of the HDZ voters didn't agree with that. They went to support this Homeland Movement of Miroslav Škoro. At the end, the election results are as such that HDZ doesn't need Homeland Movement to form a government. So the main goal, let's say, of Homeland Movement didn't really materialize. They're not in a position to change anything. Not HDZ, not Prime Minister Plenković. So they are third biggest number of MPs in the new parliament, but they hoped their influence will be much more, which they didn't succeed. And we have a Možemo, which means yes we can. It's a platform, it's a coalition made out of parties more to the left, even some of them pretty radical left, and green parties, but they're a new startup, and they attracted a lot of maybe even first voters who weren't really voting at the elections earlier, but were very much enthusiastic about supporting Možemo at these elections, and they turned out to be a surprise with 7 seats in the parliament, which is pretty good. In the city of Zagreb, where they started, they even almost came close to having a bigger number of MPs than Social Democrats, which would be very embarrassing for Social Democrats. But still, this results of Možemo platform is also pretty embarrassing, and there's been a lot of soul searching inside of Social Democrats about success of Možemo. Their leader is Tomislav Tomašević. He's been active in city politics, also in green politics, NGOs, also a very young guy. And there is a short presentation of these results, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you very much, Tomislav. We'll get to talk a little bit about the results. And maybe we could start with a broader look from Brussels or from the EU perspective. Likely, Andrej Plenković is going to be the next MP. You said that. What could EU partners expect from Croatia? Is there going to be any change? Also with respect to his future coalition partners, or is it just going to be straight like it was?
Well, there is a huge amount of continuation. We'll see a huge amount of that. But Prime Minister Plenković will probably have clearer cards to play with when in the new government. I think because of the fact that he will have less coalition partners that could ask for ministries or could influence his idea of how to organize the government and the priorities of that government. Because of that, he will maybe even have a bigger capacity for structural reforms, which in the last 4 years he didn't really have or didn't really show. So maybe that will be a change, and certainly a lot of people in Croatia are hoping for that. But he will continue with what we saw with his government in the last 4 years. So trying to put Croatia, place it in the mainstream European politics. EPP, so Christian Democrats values, but the mainstream values of EPP, and trying to, of course, deal with the crisis that is ahead of us because of the coronavirus and the numbers in unemployment and the recession that will only start appearing in autumn. So he's very much, I think, aware of that the depth of this crisis is going to be huge, and it's going to be a huge challenge to manage it. And of course, public health crisis with the possible second wave. So I think he also at the election, he was trying to profit on the fact that he was saying in the first half of this coronavirus pandemic, Croatia has won, has kept it under the control because of the measures introduced. He has tried to tell the voters that he's been successful at that, Croatian government, and that he'll continue to do that in his second term.
You mentioned the EPP, the European People's Party, and I always thought of Plenković as sort of like the rising star of the EPP. He's been courted also by Chancellor Merkel in the election campaign to the European Parliament. Which brings me to the sort of mini scandal that we've been living through, maybe not so many, with the support of Commission President Ursula von der Leyen in a campaign video, which has sort of, been scandalized here in Brussels for the last few days. And you reminded me that in the election campaign to the European Parliament, there was a mini scandal also with an election date with Chancellor Merkel, where a nationalist song was played. So my question is really, is Plenković rather the rising star, or is he sort of trapping his fellow party members?
Maybe in those two cases he walked a fine line. And I think Chancellor Merkel, after she appeared in Zagreb rally at the European elections, afterwards felt that she shouldn't have been put in that kind of situation, clapping to a song that she don't really know what the song is about. But when I talk to people here in Brussels around EPP, party leaders and the whole bubble here in Brussels, I really also have a sense that they perceive Plenković as someone as up and coming. And he's been trying to use that probably with Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. What surprised me was when spokesperson told us yesterday that Prime Minister Plenković's office approached a cabinet of Ursula von der Leyen on Friday morning. I mean, it was the day before the election silence period. So at the very last minute, so
needed some last minute support there.
Tells you how much improvising, how much they are improvising. You know, I would assume that if they plan to do it, you know, that they would plan to do it well in advance. But there is a lot of probably improvisation and pulling people by the sleeve, let's say like that. But the fact is that Prime Minister Plenković played a role in the whole process in which Ursula von der Leyen ended up as the Commission's president, and Ursula von der Leyen shot that video, which clearly is not according to a code of conduct of the members of the Commission. But so it is a mini scandal or a bigger one. But there is a precedent. In 2007, also HDZ leader Ivo Sanader back then, who was also very much pro-European and liked in Europe, also recorded a pre-election video with European leaders supporting him and saying that Croatia will end up in the European Union if Croatians elect Ivo Sanader and HDZ. And in that video, Chancellor Merkel appeared, Jean-Claude Juncker, back then as a Prime Minister of Luxembourg. And at one point I did ask Jean-Claude Juncker, when I had a chance, you know, how come you shot that video? I mean, supported Ivo Sanader, who later was charged for the corruption. So it was unpleasant question, but I wanted to see the reaction from Jean-Claude Juncker. And he was very much prepared for that unexpected question and said, no, I didn't support HDZ or Sanader, I supported Croatia on its European path. And I guess...
Get himself out easier than Ms. von der Leyen. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about the Homeland movement and its role. The success or the strength is not as anticipated. I think they expected more. But it seems a little bit like the German Alternative für Deutschland, the AfD, in the sense that it seems to cluster people who are unhappy with the Christian Democrats. Is that a fair description, or where do you see this going? Is it on the rise, or is it stable? It is a fair
description. Some people who ended up in Homeland movement, when they ran for the European elections, they already had plans to join the political group in the European Parliament where AfD and Le Pen and people like that ended up. So it is a fair description. I would also describe it like that. What they tried to do was change the HDZ as a biggest center-right party, like hijack it maybe even, you know. They couldn't stand Plenković moving HDZ from the nationalist right to the center. They criticized him, you're behaving like center-left or leftist. Your government is supported by national minorities, which for them is something unthinkable, and they don't think that they were very much of a lot of their criticism went towards Serbian minority. So their rhetoric was very much, at some points nationalist about that. At one point, they felt they have a chance, like they never had before, to force HDZ to move further to the right. But election day proved them to be wrong, and the people didn't buy it really. They didn't win as many votes as they thought they would win, and they're certainly not in a position to that Prime Minister Plenković needs them to form the government. So I think they are, as I said, inspired by the Orban. They look to Hungary and sometimes very openly say things like we should be more like Orban, less like Tusk or Merkel or Manfred Weber or anyone else from the mainstream EPP. And they look at Poland in terms of how socially conservative the ruling party in Poland is. They want to replicate that. So they did try to move Croatia maybe more closer to the politics of these two countries, but with Prime Minister Plenković, I don't think it's happening.
I think we have time for one final question, which leads me to ask you about the pro-European stance. Andrej Plenković is very pro-European, and we've talked a little bit about the right-wing populist movement, which is EU critical. With the crisis coming up or deepening after the COVID pandemic, do you anticipate your country to be pro-European as it has been, or less so maybe?
Well, no one really knows how the crisis will look like, and it also depends on whether EU will be able, and the EU leaders, Plenković among them, will be able to agree on the recovery fund and the whole multi-annual financial framework package. But in Croatia, as the newest and youngest member, you still feel that it is proud to be a member of the European Union and pro-European. Although you have to keep in mind that when Croatia joined, the crisis was already big in the European Union. First, debt crisis, Eurozone crisis, but then a migration crisis, which ended with Croatia being fenced off by the member states of the EU. So the experience of us joining the European Union is very much different than the experience of all the other countries who joined the European Union previously, who immediately entered Schengen, while Croatia stayed out of Schengen, but was faced with razor wire fences in Hungary or even Slovenia. So it affects people when they look what the European Union is and how does it look like today. But still, they're pro-European, and these election results, I think, also prove that.
And hoping to join Schengen after all. And
Croatia is trying to join Schengen.
And the Eurozone, which is sort of anticipated as the next step. But
but it will be, we still don't know when there will be a back to normality in Schengen for the existing members.
That's one thing, and it also seems always one step. I mean, it seems hard to read for any of the candidate countries who have been waiting to join for quite a while. Thank you very much for putting the spotlight on a country that is not always in the spotlight in the EU, even though it has just had the rotating presidency, which is now gone over to Germany. So we sort of represent the two countries that have been in the EU presidency most recently. Thank you very much for watching. I would like to ask Minister Putric to say a few words to conclude this session, and I will be very happy to see you again at one point. Thank you very much.
Ja, sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, ich möchte Ihnen ganz herzlich danken für das Zuschauen heute bei einem interessanten Gespräch. Ich bedanke mich besonders bei Verena Schmitt-Roschmann für die Moderation, für das Stellen der Fragen und der interessanten und der wichtigen Fragen und insbesondere ein Land, das nicht immer so im Mittelpunkt der Europäischen Union steht, aber been in the center of the European Union in its focus, but it is a very important country because every single country in the European Union is important. It had just held the European presidency, now it is Croatia, and Croatia is important to us not just because it is a beautiful country to spend one's holidays, but because what is happening there is also happening in many other countries. And we hope for Croatia, we would like to congratulate it that it has an important new task. Of course, what is difficult to see is what will happen with the coalition and how pro-European it will be. We are all striving or hoping for a pro-European government that will do everything in its possible, together with the other countries of the European Union, to have a strong European Union that can overcome the crisis and create its future. And of course, also during the presidency, we're hoping for the future Congress, Zukunftskongress, which hopefully will be done under the German presidency, because we can all feel and see that the European Union needs to make sure that it stays successful, and for this it has to continue to develop. I thank you for watching, and I am looking forward to welcoming you in person next time again. I wish you a wonderful day. I thank you for being here, and stay safe.